Larry, moving on to our part of the world, Pakistan and India, you've heard the news last couple of weeks. There is a kind of clash between India and Pakistan over Kashmir, which has been going on for more than 70 years now, this clash. Uh, it looks as if there is a attack in Indian occupied Kashmir. The Indians basically alleged Pakistan. Pakistanis denied that. Then there is a kind of exchange of hostilities. But it seems at the end, with the US brokered this ceasefire, Pakistan seems to have gained an ascendancy in terms of, destroying some of the Indian Rafale. Indians also claim that they have destroyed Pakistani military installations also. So what do you think about, how do you read the situation? Who actually gained from it? Is this just a kind of madness from both sides? What's your...
My take is I believe Western intelligence was behind this attack. If the group, Lashkar-e-Taiba, if they're the ones that actually were the perpetrators, it would not surprise me at all that there was Western financing involved or Western contact of some sort. Because candidly, this attack that took place in Kashmir was strictly designed to try to provoke confrontation between Pakistan and India. I think both Pakistan and India have been somewhat naive in trusting the West. Pakistan's relationship with the CIA well before you were born. It goes back into the 1950s, and where we had a CIA base from which the U-2 flew, and then the contacts continued where we used Pakistan as a launching pad against the Soviets when they were in Afghanistan. And, God knows the number of Pakistanis that became wealthy as a result of, the CIA paying them to haul, to transport goods into Afghanistan. And then when the second war in Afghanistan started after 9/11. And then, Pakistan's role in keeping Osama bin Laden locked up, and then playing along with the United States with this charade that you were protecting him. He was sick. He was basically a prisoner, and yet the United States went in and killed this guy who was dying of kidney disease. So throughout this process, there's been, this relationship between Pakistan and the United States that's, had intelligence has played a big role in it. And I think this was the deliberate provocation, because you got to remember, the West doesn't care if Pakistanis or Indians are dying. We don't care. You're, a bunch of brown people. It's racist, but it's true. And, folks keep getting sucked into this. And, I think at some point, again, I discount the claims that the United States was heavily involved in brokering the peace. I would argue that I think China and Russia played much more important roles, as well as Iran. Iran, particularly with Pakistan. But because all of this, I believe the ultimate goal of this is try to disrupt and destroy the BRICS process, because the United States views BRICS as a threat to its economic dominance of the world.
I have a feeling, Larry, just because of this attack, I think they wanted to kind of, give India a lesson, because India had maintained a relationship during this war in Ukraine with both Russia and West. India continues to have buy cheap oil from Russia. I think that was primarily one of the reasons, in my opinion, to provoke this conflict, to basically kind of...
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. So Larry, moving on to the other theater of in international conflict is Middle East. What's going on with US and Israel? It seems as if Donald Trump is behaving that there is a kind of a daylight especially between Netanyahu and Donald Trump, which I personally do not agree with. There is something more than which is, I guess, meets the eye. What's going on between U.S. and Israel relationship right now? How do you see this?
We need to separate the personal relationship between Donald Trump and Bibi Netanyahu from U.S. policy towards Israel. I think it's highly likely that Trump doesn't like Netanyahu, and is not going to go out of his way to slight him and insult him if he can. But that's not going to change U.S. policy in terms of supplying Israel with weapons so that they can commit genocide. There is the U.S. policy so far is a complete disregard of the rights of the Palestinian people. So I don't see any change in that policy. That said, probably the most striking development over the last 4 weeks was the United States declaring victory in the Red Sea. Oh, those Houthis, they capitulated. And then we withdrew the U.S. carrier strike group. And without saying to the Houthis, you better stop attacking Israel, because the Houthis have continued to attack Israel and to shut down any access to the Haifa port. So in that regard, there was a little bit of distancing of the U.S. policy. Now, we've seen, though, that the U.S. has come back around to the Israeli view with respect to Iran. Israel wants to attack Iran, and I can. There's a part of me that wants to see that happen, for the simple reason that I believe that if Israel does that, it will lead to the destruction of Israel. And it's only going to be through the dismantling of this current government that this genocide will stop. That's the only reason I'd want to see that. I think any attack by the United States and Israel on Iran will be very dangerous for the world. I think in that case that the people of Pakistan as well would be outraged by such an attack on Iran. The reality is Iran is proclaimed as this major sponsor of terrorism, but the facts just don't support that claim. And the facts that are published by the U.S. government through my old office at what's now called the Bureau of Counterterrorism. But they've locked themselves, both with the Trump administration and Bibi Netanyahu, they've all locked themselves into a narrative about Iran, and they can't accept any other explanation for it. So, I think we're headed towards an attack on Iran, and the repercussions of that, I think, are going to be very significant and detrimental for the world.
Larry, just a couple of more questions. One is about this current head of the Syrian government, Al-Jolani. Donald Trump just said, it was a remarkable statement. He said that this guy is a very strong lad and has a very strong past. I heard it 4 years back when Donald Trump was president, that he was so proud when the U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq had actually killed Baghdadi. And Jolani, I'm sure people have told him that Jolani is the vice captain of al-Baghdadi. So what kind of this flip-flopping going on in the US?
See, you're young and naive. You expect consistency from the United States? This is why it's such a joke. Look, if it wasn't serious, this would be very funny. This is like a comedy show, because the United States is always preaching, they come and lecture Pakistan on don't support terrorists. What's the United States been doing? We've been supporting terrorists, funding terrorists, aiding and abetting terrorism. And now we embrace Jolani, who, from 2017 up through 2023, Jolani's group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, was listed as one of the most active groups in international terrorism. They were ranked like number 7 out of 10. And now all of a sudden we're pretending that this guy is, not a terrorist. Now, I've said tongue in cheek with a bit of sarcasm, though this is consistent with U.S. policy, because notice that we welcome and embrace terrorists in Israel. Menachem Begin, Yitzhak Shamir, both were heads of terrorist organizations. Irgun for Begin and the Stern Gang for Yitzhak Shamir, I believe. So, at least we're being bipartisan. The Trump is being even-handed that we've embraced Israeli terrorists. Now we're embracing Muslim terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, Larry. If I look at the arc of history from 1977 onwards to 2025, starting from Afghanistan, then Iraq, Syria, and Libya, all of those regimes who had connections either with China or especially with Russia, they were systematically eliminated. If you look at the ring of these regimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look at in Pakistan, the efforts that have been made by the West to lock up Imran Khan. I mean, they've done to Khan what they tried to do to Trump, the deep state. And, this is, I said, I had a discussion earlier today with a reporter out of Armenia. And, I reminded him and I remind you and all Pakistanis, don't trust my country. The United States views you as a tool, something to be used without any regard for the welfare of the Pakistani people. That is the sad fact. And, I think one of the things that makes countries really more inclined to have relations with Russia and with China is they don't encounter the same sort of disregard for their own national interests. That Russia is much better at respecting the Pakistani situation and letting Pakistan be Pakistan, essentially, without viewing it as just another pawn on a chessboard to be moved about at the will of Russia, which is unfortunately how the United States has viewed and treats Pakistan.
Very final question about Iran. There's last couple of weeks, maybe a month back, there is the news that they've been negotiating a nuclear deal with respect to the US and Iran, with Oman playing a very important role in between, and office for the chief negotiator from the US side. Do you think there is a deal on the table, or is just kind of
No, I think right now the deal appears to be dead. There was a deal to be had. And Witkoff initially, I think he was when he was thinking just as an independent negotiator, he came up with a deal that would have allowed Iran to retain its peaceful nuclear enrichment, its uranium enrichment program, 3.6%. That Iran would give up the higher percentages, 20% used for developing medical isotopes, and it was willing to forego that and get it from Russia. And Russia was willing to provide those guarantees. But the Zionist lobby went crazy. They're insisting that Iran can't have a single drop of enriched uranium. They must surrender it all. And so they were supposed to meet again this week, I think in Rome, this would have been the 5th session. And Iran has told Oman, we're not meeting with the Americans anymore. It's a waste of time. So I think, unfortunately, that process for right now is coming to an end, which increases the likelihood that we will be seeing an attack by Iran and or the United States on Iran.
Okay, Larry, thank you so much for your time. It's really a pleasure, meeting you again and having a conversation about the whole world. We've covered Russia-Ukraine theater, Middle East theater, India-Pakistan theater.
Well, listen, I thank you for the invitation, and it's always a pleasure to have a chat with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.